Dark Phoenix, or X-Men Dark Phoenix as it should really be called, is the supposedly final installment of the X-Men Fox franchise, and this is a series that I've always tried my best to defend, no matter how bad the movies may get, whether it be X-Men 3 or X-Men Origins Wolverine. I try my best to defend the series, mainly because I've always had a soft spot for these X-Men films. However, X-Men Dark Phoenix makes it very hard to want to defend the series, as this movie really didn't do much for me. And it's a shame, especially considering this is the last one. I'll start off with the positives like usual. The characters are still likeable and are pretty good for the most part. James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender and Nicholas Hoult are genuinely trying in this movie. No matter how bad the script may get, you can tell that those three are genuinely still trying to make these characters as interesting and as likeable as they have been in the past. And also, the final 15 to 10 minutes are genuinely way better than anything else that happens in the rest of the film. That's kind of where my positives stop, though, because everything else is either really boring or is just kind of laughably bad. And I thought we'd passed that point in the X-Men films, but apparently not. My issues with Dark Phoenix really start with the story. I'm fully aware that they've tried to do the Phoenix storyline before in X-Men films, specifically X-Men 3 The Last Stand. And even though they did botch that storyline up in that film, it's still a lot more interesting in that film than it is here, because the way they go about doing it in Dark Phoenix is in the most cookie-cutter, predictable, boring way possible that it just feels like a chore to get through. And it's a real shame, because it is one of the more interesting stories in the X-Men comics. So the fact that they've kind of botched it up twice is kind of a sign that they should maybe just not do it. But yeah, the predictable plot alongside direction that is genuinely just boring and bland really does nothing to elevate the movie beyond what it should be. And I give Simon Kinberg credit, at least he tried, and as far as I'm aware, I'm pretty sure he's been, I think, producer on almost all the X-Men films, so he knows these characters well, at least I hope he should. And this is the first time he's come on to direct one of them. And you can tell that he has an understanding of this world and the characters, but his direction is just so uninteresting and bland that, again, it does very little to push or give momentum to the events you're seeing in the film. Whereas if you compare this to, say, Matthew Vaughn directing X-Men First Class, there was enough of his own unique flair and style behind that film to make it feel fresh and cool again. And that's especially evident considering that the film that was before X-Men First Class was X-Men Origins Wolverine. So the series definitely needed something to boost it in terms of energy, and Matthew Vaughn did that. And here, Simon Kinberg kind of does the complete opposite of that. Now, even though McAvoy, Fassbender and Hoult are really good in the film, and they are definitely the best aspects of the movie, everyone else in the movie just feels like they're there. Sophie Turner is a great actress, but here she just feels like she's reading out her lines to just get the movie done. And it's a real shame, because there are some parts where she is genuinely trying, but for the majority of the runtime, she's just getting through this to kind of get the paycheck. Ty Sheridan tries, but I personally don't think he's as interesting of a Cyclops as James Marsden was. Jennifer Lawrence, I honestly forgot she was in the X-Men films until she popped up in this movie. Again, she feels like she's just spouting off her lines until the movie's over. And yeah, it's a real shame, because I think what doesn't help, especially with this and X-Men Apocalypse, is that with the original 3 X-Men movies, we knew those characters right from the word go, so therefore when drastic things start to happen in, say, X-Men 3 The Last Stand, you feel a lot more connected to them, and when something does happen, you feel bad for them and you feel emotion. However, with this younger, newer cast of the versions of the X-Men, it doesn't quite have that same thing, because in X-Men Apocalypse, we are introduced to Nightcrawler and Cyclops and Storm. However, for the majority of that film, they're off on the side doing their own thing, and you rarely see them in the movie. In Dark Phoenix, they're supposed to be front and center, but you haven't had any previous time to properly connect to them, which is what makes the movie feel a bit awkward. These things that are life-changing for them and that are very eventful are clearly happening on the screen, but you don't feel as invested in what is happening because you've barely had any time to connect to these characters. And like what I said before, this storyline of the whole Phoenix Jean Grey thing is supposed to be really cool and really interesting, but the entire movie just feels really tedious and boring to get through, and you really well, at least I really didn't care how it ended. But that being said, the final 15 to 10 minutes happens, and it feels like it was directed by someone completely different, because you have the entire movie where it just feels like a chore to get through. But then the final 10 to 15 minutes is just bursting with so much energy and is genuinely really cool to watch, that as it was happening, I was like, where was this the entire film? I mean, this is the stuff I've been wanting in the rest of the movie, but instead the rest of the movie is just really boring, and the finale, I don't know, it's just really weird. I was hoping this movie would be better than people were saying it is, and I don't think it's as awful as some people are saying it is, but for the final X-Men movie in this series, it's definitely disappointing as hell. These characters deserve a lot better. Yeah, I was just really disappointed with X-Men Dark Phoenix, which is why I'm going to give it a 5.5 out of 10. I don't really see my grade going any higher. But like I said, when this movie does do stuff right, it's pretty damn good. Like, the finale battle is genuinely entertaining. James McAvoy, Michael Fassbender, and Nicholas Hoult are brilliant in the movie. But everything else is just so boring or crap that it makes it hard to want to like it. And that's coming from someone that's always tried to find the positives in almost every X-Men film. No matter how bad they are, I'll always try my best to defend those films, no matter how bad they get. But here, it's very hard to try and defend this movie because I genuinely found most of it really boring. So guys, that was my review of Dark Phoenix. I hope you enjoyed it. If you liked the video, then give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bye.